But that's the question that investigators have, I think, is why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's the answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to, you're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
Can you answer why you held on to the documents?
I was
That was it,
negotiating.
gang. That was it. That was the moment that Trump finally broke
They can have whatever they want.
CNN. Caitlin Collins, and the most distrusted name in fake news, never, ever recovered. Take a look at this, gang. Look at this. CNN is about to conduct mass firings. We've won. We've won. There's going to be a round of mass layoffs that may end the careers of the last bit of notables on this dying news network. Their ratings have absolutely tanked. And it's not just CNN, it's MSNBC as well. Here are some stats. You're going to love this. Take a look at this collapse. By the way, welcome, everybody. Good to see you all here. Let us know where you're all from in the chat. If this is your first time here, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. We'd love to have you as a regular part of our online community here. But take a look at this ratings collapse. The repulsive Joy Reid down 54.6% in the ratings. Ari Melber down 49.6%. Chris Hayes down 47.2%. Alex Wagner down 53.6%. Morning Joe, freaking Biden's at his best ever. Morning Joe down 39.6%. Stephanie Rule is down 67%. And Sleepy Andrea Mitchell down 39.7%. That is brutal. That is absolutely brutal for both CNN and MSNBC. And as a result, we're getting now word that CNN is reportedly ready to cut some of their last remaining high-paid anchors, like Anderson Cooper. Cooper's apparently making $20 million. Aaron Burnett, she's reportedly making $6 million. Even that Caitlin Collins that you just saw, she's reportedly making $3 million. Chris Wallace, of course, he read the writing on the wall. He's announced he's out of there after 3 years. You might remember, too, the upcoming layoffs are actually part of an ongoing bloodbath of layoffs for CNN. Earlier this year, they let go of over 100 employees. It was widely reported that CNN experienced really nothing less than a bloodbath in job cuts. Yahoo News called it a gut punch of layoffs. I forget if this was back in January of this year, but among the victims, perhaps most dramatically, the entire staff at HLN. I'm sure you never heard of them. They were a spinoff from CNN. They were owned by CNN Global. The entire HLN operation had been officially nixed earlier in the year. Not to mention, of course, the total termination of CNN Plus. Freaking CNN Plus. Did it ever see the light of day? I don't even know. I mean, again, talk about a parody of abject failure. But it's all because, really, in the end, CNN has fallen to its lowest primetime viewership since 1991. I want that to hit you right now as we speak. However confident they may want to try to present themselves, CNN is experiencing its lowest audience in 30 freaking years. I mean, think about it. Virtually its entire primetime lineup from just a couple of years ago, Cuomo, Lemon, they're all gone. The network's basically been gutted. CNN Plus is the butt of jokes in terms of failure. I mean, the network is literally falling apart in front of everyone's eyes. They've lost their iconic Atlanta building. They had to move back into their old building. They've lost their airport monopoly that they used to inflate their advertising revenue with, claiming that they were getting hundreds of millions of views a day when no one gave them the time of day when they were sitting at the terminal. In fact, as I understand it, one of the big complaints was travelers asking airport staff, "Can you please turn that crap off?" And they couldn't. They were contractually bound to keep CNN playing for people who didn't even want to look at it. So while that's gone now, Their ad revenue is drying up as we speak. I mean, it's an absolute disaster. Now, on top of that, now we've got word that Comcast is actually trying to offload MSNBC onto somebody. Do you see this? I mean, you can't make this stuff up, gang. It's being reported that Comcast, which owns NBC, is looking to sell off the ultra-left spinoff, MSNBC. And you have to wonder if this is causing people like Joy Reid to do things like this.
Hey, I just want to give some free advice to the white progressives, particularly white progressive women who may be thinking about marching against the Trump victory, maybe putting back on the P-word hats and doing that thing. I would just say probably don't send any of those invites to any black women you know. I'm just going to tell you right now, they're not coming. I'm pretty sure black women have resigned from the Save America Coalition, Save Democracy Coalition, and definitely the Save the Democratic Party Coalition. I think that's probably not happening. I would just keep those invites maybe among your own friends because I don't think they're coming. But yeah, I think black women are now on the Save Black Women, Prioritize Black Men, and prioritize black communities, black businesses, and that. And, you know, the black spaces, but Save America, Save the Democratic Party. Yeah, I don't think that's happening.
She's given up. She's totally, absolutely, completely given up. She's given it up on America. She's given up on democracy. And she's retreating into her own tribalist little enclave, her own racial safe space. She's so upset at white women for voting Trump. Not realizing, by the way, not admitting, maybe she does realize that she's just covering it up, that a record number of black women actually voted for Trump in 2024. I believe double the number that voted for him in 2020, along with 1 in 3 black men under the age of 50. So I think she's being selectively critical, to say the least. But that's not all. She talk about giving up. She's now deleted her Twitter account. Did you see this? Did you see she deleted her Twitter account? She just like Don Lemon, she filmed a video on why they feel the need to do this. I don't know. They can't just go quietly into the night. She filmed a video on why she deleted her account. Micah, do we have that?
So today I finally did something I've been meaning to do for a while. And the reason for doing it, and kissing goodbye my 1.9 million followers over there, is because I hadn't been posting for a long time. I just didn't want to contribute content once it was purchased by its present owner. But just having it there, I was only holding on to it because I, really didn't want someone trying to take over that name and using it for nefarious purposes. I was a little bit worried about that. And also every so often I would use it to just sort of look at news that was trending and what's happening. And I would just sort of use it as an aggregator. But I just realized that's not really worth it, because in order to do the news aggregation and just look at all, you have to wade through a lot of dreck and a lot of just abuse and a lot of just negativity. And it's just not worth it. And,
sounds like a typical program of Joy Reid, doesn't it? Dreck and abuse and so forth. I'll spare you the rest of it. But she's clearly having a mental breakdown at this point. The irony in all of this is that woke activists like Joy Reid and the left-wing activists disguised as journalists all throughout MSNBC and CNN, the irony is, in the end, they really only have themselves to blame for all of this. After openly and overtly lying to the American people for years now, the legacy media is suddenly stunned to find out that nobody wants to listen to them anymore. I mean, think about that. Remember, there was a time they used to be able to get away with this when they had a monopoly of information acquisition and information dissemination. Back in the day, in the course of the 20th century, the media had a monopoly over what information would get mediated to the general population. And it was such a powerful monopoly that scholars actually referred to the media as agenda setting. This all comes from the field of study known as agenda setting theory. It refers to the various ways in which the legacy media influence the political and cultural agenda for our nation. Agenda setting theory argues that it's not so much politicians or leaders that set the political agenda, it's actually the media. It's what the media focuses on, what issues get mass attention. And that could include the whole of the media complex, not just news, but also movies, television. So from New York to Hollywood, the national agenda was inordinately shaped more by broadcasters than it was by bureaucrats. And that's what's known as agenda setting theory. And so what we found is that left-wing activists have long recognized that if they really wanted to make a difference in the world, right, if they wanted to affect the politics of the nation, you don't necessarily run for office. You sit in front of a camera. You write editorials. You get press credentials and cause politicians to fear you based on what you are going to write about them. The media use primarily two things to do this. It's called framing and priming. Those are the two principal ways of influencing public opinion. So they would frame their stories always from a distinctly left-wing liberal point of view, so as to prime the sentiments of their audience, to bias those sentiments towards liberal Democrat policies and political issues. And in this way, the media didn't just acclimate voters towards Democrats, but they even in turn acclimated the Republican Party towards more liberal left-wing issues. And so this is why Republicans are always seen as on the defensive. It didn't matter what issue you were talking about. I mean, you see it particularly in presidential debates. You even saw it this year. The issues are always framed to favor the Democrat and put the Republican on the defensive. The problem for them is that with the rise of the internet, with the rise of what we call the network society, we all now have instant access to the same digital information that anyone at CNN or MSNBC has. So now the masses are in a position to actually fact check the self-anointed fact checkers. So society in many ways has inverted. And that's ultimately been the legacy media's undoing. Now that information has been radically democratized, so that the media no longer has this privileged monopolistic relationship to information, the masses are now in a position to be able to fact check them. And how have they fared with that? Right? They told us that Trump colluded with Russia to steal the 2016 election. They told us that Jussie Smollett was the victim of a race crime. They told us Brett Kavanaugh was a rapist. They told us the COVID lab leak theory was nothing but a conspiracy theory. They told us that border agents on horseback were running around whipping migrants. They told us that the Covington Catholic school kids mocked and ridiculed and maligned a poor, peaceful Native American simply banging on his drum. They told us that Trump built cages for migrant kids and recommended that people drink bleach to cure COVID. That Kyle Rittenhouse was a white supremacist. And of course, the granddaddy of them all, that the Hunter Biden laptop was nothing more than Russian disinformation. We got 51 intelligence experts to prove it. And here we are now with the same access to information that they have, and we're in the position to fact check them. And they've been revealed and exposed to be out and out partisan liars. And so what the legacy media is finding out the hard way today is that their agenda setting status has completely imploded. That's, in the end, what November 5th really was ultimately, I think, all about. November 5th itself, we don't have to ask how November 5th is going to affect our society or our politics. It already has. November 5th itself recalibrated our political order in that it, in effect, rejected overwhelmingly the agenda setting status of the legacy media. The legacy media didn't simply campaign for Kamala. The legacy media was the Kamala campaign. They were literally campaign surrogates that functioned as a Democrat super PAC that literally reported no differently than were Nancy Pelosi running CNN or MSNBC. Frankly, I'll take that back. If anything, especially like with Joy Reid at MSNBC, they were even more extreme than Pelosi would have been were she at the helm. They are finding out the hard way that their days of influencing public opinion have come to an end. The era of independent news, independent content creators like yours truly has arrived. It's all part of the dawning of a new golden age, and the media will never be the same. You may have noticed that there has been a major uptick in whatever version of COVID is swirling around these days. I mean, the reality is wherever the virus came from, it appears to be very much a part of the human population as of now. And that means that a lot of us are very concerned about the adverse effects of the spike protein on our bodies. Now, whether you got the shot or not, the spike protein is not something you necessarily want in your system. And so that's why I partnered with the Wellness Company, because they offer proven preventative solutions to assist the body in spike protein elimination with Dr. Peter McCullough's Spike Detox Trio Protocol. The best time to take this is prior to travel and during or if you hear about a new wave of COVID. And this protocol is being used globally by many doctors, and it's 100% natural. So if you recently had a bad bout of the virus or you want to detox from the shot, the medical board at the Wellness Company, gang, they're here for you. Click on that link below or go to twc.health/Turley. Use code Turley for an exclusive $45 off and free shipping. You heard that right. Use promo code Turley for $45 off and free shipping. Click on that link below right now. You know, gang, one of the ways that the legacy media has used its influence on mass opinion has been through polling. As you know, in the days and weeks leading up to the election, we were inundated with all kinds of polling that showed Kamala Harris just running away with it. And the Washington Post touted that Harris had a massive lead in the early voting. Ann Seltzer of the Des Moines Register had the gall to claim that Harris, this is just 48 hours before the election, that Harris was winning Iowa by 3. And she claimed that it anticipated shockwaves throughout the Midwest and Rust Belt states. Maris had Kamala up nationally by 4. And in the midst of all this insanity, there were a handful of pollsters and data analysts that saw a very different race. And one of them, of course, was the great Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen. And once again, Rasmussen polling has earned the title of being one of the single most accurate pollsters, in this case in 2024. And here to take a much-deserved victory lap is the man himself, Mark Mitchell. Mark, welcome back. Congratulations on another, you did it in 2020 as well, another successful round of presidential polling, man.
And let me tell you, 2020 was a really tough one just because of all the ridiculous, magical unicorn Democrat votes that came out of nowhere. I'm really surprised we were as accurate as we were.
Yeah.
But from an accuracy standpoint, we had this race locked in and nailed the entire time. For literally 2 months in a row, every week we were just putting out Trump +2, Trump +2. Oh, guess what the final result is?
Trump +2.
And I will say there were some other people that had similar things. But if you take away any poll that ever had Harris winning, you're down to literally 2 or 3 people.
Yep.
And then if you take away anybody who only polled a few times, you're down to us. Yeah. So
exactly.
We were just, and that's why I think I really did fight an information war. And listen, I was not shilling for Trump. My goal this entire time was just to be accurate. But
right.
I was looking around in August and September, and I saw these people lying. I saw every single person went to these Harris +4, Harris +5, and even Harris +6 results. It was wild, every single one of them. And of course, a lot of them came back at the end because they realized she was going to lose. They had to save their credibility. I really think if Rasmussen Reports had not been there, We
Right.
would have gone into election day with Harris winning in the polls in the national popular vote by 2, 3, maybe even 4 points.
Yeah, definitely. In the real clear politics average. Well, they even had it. I thought RCP right at the end had like a Harris plus 0.2 or something like
Yeah,
that.
who was it? Somebody came in right at the buzzer.
I think it was Maris. I think it was Maris.
Yeah, you're right. It was Maris with the Harris
Yeah,
plus
plus
4.
four. Harris plus 4. No, seriously, I gotta thank you, Mark, from all of our viewers, because of how straight shooter you are here. I mean, and you did it in 2020. You're not a shill. It's the strangest thing, and I'm curious what your opinion is on this. We want to be told the truth. If Trump isn't doing well, we want to know. We want to make preparations. We want to, we're going to have to think about the future of the nation 4 years from now. We want to know. All right. What is it with leftists who just seem to they love being lied to? It's just this, they love to lie and they love being lied to. That's what's just so weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ultimate struggle of our time, is this competing view of reality. And over again, you see them adopt beliefs that people have described as luxury beliefs, meaning you can only afford to believe in them because you're rich and you don't have any problems.
Right.
And what I think we're seeing is that in this resurgence of independent media, people are actually having a kind of dialogues that Greeks were having 3,000 years ago. They understood that objective discussions about reality in good faith can lead to learning on both sides. And that's the kind of discussions I hear in conservatism right now. And over again, just like you just showed it in your previous clips with Joy Reid, she's trying to run from reality. Yeah. She says she has to wade through garbage on Twitter, but she doesn't like her narratives to be confronted with facts. That's why they're running. It's because they finally lost the high ground. They don't have this credentialed, authoritative view of factuality on Twitter anymore. They've completely lost it. And it was all really clearly displayed for the entire world to see last week. Now, they've been destroying their credibility for year after year after year. But all of a sudden, everybody, what a night. I was on like 12, 13 different live streams. There were some I wanted to go on. I couldn't even make it on. Millions and millions of people were watching independent media. They weren't looking to Brett Baer to call what states were winning. They were looking at the betting markets or their own analysis. It was absolutely wild. They totally lost the plot. And MSNBC ratings are down 40% across the board.
Isn't that insane?
Everything's imploding on them. Yeah, it's crazy.
They're looking to, Comcast is looking to sell them and nobody's buying. That's the hilarious part about it.
CNN's going to have a bloodbath. The firing kind.
The firing kind. That's right. That's right. Ironic, is it not? Yes. I think that's what they're referring to it as. Who has the last laugh there? I'm wondering too. I mean, it's got to be a funding and fabrication racket as well. I mean, you put out all these puff Kamala polls at the end of July, beginning of August. That enables her to run to all the donors who can write her the big fat checks because they're political illiterates. They don't know anything. They're just rich. And so they, hey, look, I'm beating them by 10 points. Give me, 10 mil, whatever. So all these puff polls, there seemed to be a lot of money in it for both the polling outlets as well as the politicians that they benefit. But then it's kind of a psyop. It fabricates this narrative, right? Like, again, and yet that was a big emphasis of yours leading all the way to the election, is that these polls are there to fabricate a narrative that if you want to be on the winning team, you got to vote Kamala. So fund and fabricate, it seems to be that seems to be like the twofold emphasis for these, for what seems to be a polling racket in the end, a polling mafia, as I've heard it put.
Yeah, that's fair. It's an entire unified front because not all of the pollsters were lying all of the time. They also, you have your Nate Cohns who were trying to be accurate, but you could just tell somebody higher up the chain wouldn't let them put the right results out. And the crosstabs show the whole story. And then you have people that were just cherry picking stuff that was garbage and putting out false headlines about it. But again, it all comes down to this alignment of the media and the corporations with government interests in DC. But you're right, it was a psyop because there still are voters who are very emotional driven, who
Mhm.
are driven by fear of missing out, I think is one of the things. Same way they try and market a crappy movie with trailers and, cut it up into a glitzy package and try and make you, trick
And
you
then you're
into
watching,
going.
and then you're stuck there for 90 minutes with your popcorn and your stuff. For us, we're stuck here for the next 4 years with this crappy movie we gotta watch. Yeah, yeah.
And I do think there's going to have to be a lot of analysis looking back. I do think there was a lot of talk. I mean, people were whipped into a froth over abortion.
Mhm.
Obviously, Kamala Harris lost, and so that wasn't the main issue that people were thinking about. But it was a lot of women, and not all of them. There were a lot of Harris only won women by a few points.
Yeah.
But here's numbers I pulled up while we were talking about this. I think it's a very good sign that the psyops do affect a certain portion of the population. We asked the question, generally speaking, should Americans be proud or ashamed of the history of the United States? 68% said proud. I guess I would like to see that number higher. 17% said ashamed, and 16% said not sure. This is like Americans and not likely voters. So maybe there's some immigrants or people on work permit, whatever. But then we did it by age and gender, and men under 40, 70%, men over 40, 75%, women over 40, 66%, women under 40. Only 47% of them are proud of America's history. 34% of them are ashamed. Everybody else, it's in the teens. So like men under 40, only 14% of them are ashamed of America's history. So there really is something about, and this isn't even with education in there. This is not with income. I think you'd see an even bigger signal. I think these women go to these college campuses. They are looking for a lot of social validation or social proof. They follow people on the internet. They're engaged heavily in social media that has crafted these narratives. And they've really been weaponized against American freedoms. It's really wild.
Yeah, resentment politics, I think, is the or emancipatory politics are sort of the technical terms for it. But yeah, it's a cultural Marxist sort of. There's the society is made up of victims and victimizers, oppressed and oppressors, and women seem to be the most responding to that. Men don't seem to buy it. We've noticed that in the college campuses, the Charlie Kirk moments when he's out there, and they're all like, yeah, Yeah, I don't know. There's something in our DNA that just doesn't tend to go there. But for some reason, women are susceptible to that.
We all know like wildly unmasculine Zoomers and really strange kids. And like, I know a lot of them, and yet looking at these numbers, they're only 4% more ashamed of America's history than men over 40.
Wow.
So the masculinity crisis, it's not really a thing. It's not. And again, they turned out big for Trump. They absolutely did. It's just a question of how much.
They did. Did he? Do you mind? Let's do a little victory lap for you, because we had you on a couple of weeks before the election. You deserve this. You and Rich and Atlas Intel. You guys were unbelievable. So you came, if I've got my stats right, you came within a point, within like tenths of a point of the national vote. But what I'm even more impressed with is you had Trump winning all 7 swing states. You had him up, if I recall, 2. I'm trying to remember all the.
Yeah, I can rattle through all that.
Yeah, I think you had him up 2 in Nevada, which I was really impressed with, because I think that was the final. But anyway, yes, rattle. How to? Do the victory lap for us.
Well, all these numbers are changing too, but we put out our final call as Trump plus 3, but it was rounded from a Trump plus 2.4. We've been putting out Trump plus 2 for months and months and months. The national popular vote is 2 right now. It literally is 2. So
it's crazy. Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people will probably selectively craft these measuring sticks to reduce our accuracy. I know that some of our competitors are already out there doing it. That's not the way we roll. I just do my thing and keep on going.
That's why we support you and love what you do. So absolutely. We got your back. You don't need them.
Yeah, maybe I could send you. Maybe I could send you a clip to put over this when we air this. But I have a graph that shows the battlefield actual results stack ranked. And it creates, a curve, because Arizona went more to Trump, Wisconsin went less. And we we called 6 out of the 7 battlegrounds correct. We said Michigan was going 0.8 to Harris on average, but it was in the margin of error. So
exactly.
we called 6 out of the 7 within the margin of error, but we missed Arizona because the Arizonans just turned out big. They
huge.
were all really close. The average polling error across the battlegrounds was less than a point. I think it was 0.7%, and it was to Harris. So we actually had a left-leaning bias in the battleground states. Now, what the chart shows is that because we're pollsters and because we put out polls and because they have massive margins of error, there is polling error. So we missed Arizona to the left. We got Nevada within 1.5 points on average. North Carolina, we were within tenths of a point. Georgia, we were too Trumpy by a point and change. So there's ups and downs, but the point is when you graph it, our line pretty much overlays the actual line because there was no bias. Now, what's crazy is I also put in that chart the Real Clear Politics and the 538. So because they take all of these polls together, it smooths out the polling error, and yet there's an industry bias. So the entire Real Clear Politics line is about 1 to 3 points below every one of the states.
Yeah.
And that's with us in there.
Yep.
So the industry, again, and I will say good for the industry. That's less error than the last 2 times. But still, the entire industry was putting in about 1.5 points, 2 points of left-wing polling error in the battlefields. And then you look at 538, and they got a staff of 30 people. They have like hundreds of millions have been dumped into that business. It gets so much attention, so much traffic. And their line is even to the left of the Real Clear Politics line. And the shape's insane. So it's like they literally just took Real Clear Politics, the straight industry average, and added another 0.5 point of left-wing bias.
To the left, always to the left.
And you could say, well, that's not that much. But if you put out a no toss-ups map, the Real Clear Politics one showed Trump winning. The 538 one did not. Right. So that's the difference. And it's absolutely wild. So it's almost like 538, owned by Disney, owned by ABC News, is a propaganda outfit literally there to insert just as much bias as the Democrats need to be winning in the headlines.
Exactly right. For that funding and fabrication, like we were talking about. Yeah, I just remember when we were chatting a couple of weeks before the election, and you had said it. I think it was even on the video. You'd said it. We've had Trump up too for like months. I mean, you said it. It's been it was a relatively stable national polling. Everybody knew Trump. Everybody had an opinion. Everybody loved him, is going to love him. There's nothing you could change. Anybody who hated him was going to hate him. Nothing was. There was pretty much no undecideds out there.
Yeah.
You pretty much you had this very steady assessment of the state of the race for weeks, while all this other tumultuous polling was going left and right. I think you kept a lot of people sane. That was the narrative. I think Rasmussen communicated was sanity and stability in the midst of all the tumultuous craziness that was out there.
Happy to do a service. I mean, but listen, Trump's been around for 10 years. So logic was on my side. And everybody, like the headlines were saying, oh, that's what's crazy is how absolutely reversed they are. My numbers showed that Trump was getting about 49% of the vote. Harris had a 47-point ceiling. I try not to watch MSNBC and CNN, but when I did, what I heard over and over again was that Trump had a 47% ceiling. Right. And it's just an outright blatant lie. And what's wild, I think probably everybody can agree with this. If you were supporting Trump, you had a really exhausting October.
Yes.
And if that is right, and you were on Twitter or social media, it's because you fought an information war. Congratulations. You're countering mainstream media narratives that were all basically lies and attempts to demoralize people on the right. And every day was something new, and they literally trotted out every weapon they had.
Oh, the Ann Seltzer poll was the last straw for me. I mean, every once in a while, Mark, you just feel like maybe I'm crazy. Maybe Jake Tapper really does understand the world better than I do. I mean, maybe all of this is for naught. But when that Ann Seltzer poll, I mean, that was it. I'm like, these guys they're not just lying. They're desperately lying. This is absurd. Rachel, I don't know if you saw Rachel Maddow.
Oh, I saw that clip with the little chuckle. And then she's
like, oh, the most reputable pollster on the planet. Ha ha, +3. And you're like, this is nuts.
she was telling her viewers who quite frankly, okay, probably over-index women, right? Probably over-index people who trust the government, who are very trusting, who trust authority, who probably want some kind of psychological unity with their fellow man because they're looking for cohesion. They're looking for information cohesion. And she knows that. She knows who her audience is. For her to look them in the eye and chuckle and whip out that headline about the Ann Seltzer poll and imply that the entire left-leaning polling industry was somehow underemphasizing Kamala Harris support is one of the most evil things I think I've ever seen my entire life. And I like, okay, you know, I'm not a fascist, but I'm just saying there should be repercussions for, you know, people should stop listening to them.
She's lost a lot of audience, which is good to hear. She did this happen right after the after she led her audience astray with the Russian collusion hoax and the Bob Mueller investigation thing. You know, oh, that's it. We're going to take Trump out. We're going to take it. And all of a sudden, you had bumbling Bob Mueller up there, didn't even know what his report said. And so she ate crow there. But like you said it perfectly. I just think we both our audiences, I know, overlap. We're big boys and girls. We want to be told the truth. If Trump is falling apart, let us know. All right, we can deal with it. You know, if JD Vance doesn't have a chance, let us know. We can deal with it. We don't want to be lied to, but there's just something about that crowd. I think they fabricate. I think it's in the nature of the woke world that they've just fabricate. They live in a fabricated reality, and that's all they know how to do. They fabricate facts. They fabricate inferences from the facts. They fabricate talking points. I mean, you're seeing it now. I mean, the last people on the planet that should be talking about justice are talking about Matt Gaetz and his relation to the Justice Department. These are the last people on the planet that should have any opinion on justice. And yet here they are, you know, waxing. Yeah, I can go on.
I hope wokeness is top ticked because I worked in non-woke corporations and I worked in woke corporations. And when I say woke, it's always a leadership thing. Because in my opinion, the people who you might look at within a corporation and say, oh, they're woke. Well, it's like, okay, but they do respond to strong leadership and incentives and collaboration. And it's usually the leaders that are causing this. And we know why, right? But man, I don't know if you saw it yet. AOC actually removed the pronouns from her Twitter bio. Wow. So that's, I mean, you could say,
golden
okay,
age.
Well, it might be inconsequential to some people. That's actually a really big signal. These are people that are cued into virtue signaling.
Yeah.
That got people know exactly. And so I do think wokeness is disgusting and a perversion and has caused a lot of strife here in this country. The entire idea that equity comes before equality. I actually interviewed for companies where I had an entire interview devoted to explaining how I would use my position, should be building value for shareholders, how I was going to use my authority and position to actually right the wrongs of the world and equity and all that. It's absolutely garbage. It's pervasive, but I don't think they're true believers. That's the crazy. I think what has been revealed now is that this really all was just about the oligarchy burning every asset they could. They stuck it all to the wall, even the pride of one of the gold standard pollsters that they revere. And they just totally sacrificed. Like nobody's going to listen to her anymore.
Everything woke turns to dung, as King James would say. I want to. I'm curious on your assessment of what we saw in Miami-Dade and the Rio Grande counties in Texas, which is these massive swings to the right. First of all, what do you make of that? And does that have any implication of a comparable paradigm shift like in our neck of the woods in Pennsylvania and New Jersey?
I mean, people crawled over broken glass everywhere to vote for Donald Trump. And I've seen headlines, I've seen varying, you talked about it. It's like, why the whole country moved to the right, but the battlegrounds moved to the right less, right. And that is a very important question that should be asked every day. But I can tell you the Rio Grande is because Hispanic voters absolutely detest illegal immigration And they also are just like white voters and everybody else in that there's an affordability crisis. They're losing their jobs. It's horrible, okay? Because they can tell you the economy is great, but there's a really good crosstab out of one of the horrible mainstream media rag polls. And one of the questions was, are you financially well off? And people who supported Trump, it was like their numbers was like over 90% said no. People who supported Harris, almost 90% said yes.
Yeah.
So it really is a situation of luxury beliefs. But I mean, how important to you is that the government stop illegal immigration? This is just from the last couple of days. Hispanic voters, 48%, very important. Total of, what is that? 70% say at least somewhat important.
Wow.
And Donald Trump has promised on day one of his next presidential administration, he will launch the largest deportation program in American history to get the criminals out.
Yep. Yep.
Approve or disapprove, 70% of Hispanic voters approve, 47% strongly. So it's no wonder Trump picked up support with those people. They've been treated in a very cynical manner by Democrats. It's, we'll bring him in.
Purely identity. Yeah. 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 Are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah.
I mean, are you kidding me? That wins Latino voters to say, okay. Yeah. I mean, it is, again, talk about fabricated reality. But so what, in terms of this working class realignment, white, non-white, working class realignment, you've been seeing it for ages. Barris has been seeing it. We've been reading. I mean, we saw it all starting up back in 2016 with the Brexit vote overseas. The so-called far right have their highest support among the European working class. We're seeing it here. Starts with the white working class in 2016, moves over to non-white working class in 2024. Absolutely astonishing numbers coming out of the Rio Grande, astonishing numbers coming out of Miami-Dade. What do you think about Jersey? Can you see a comparable working class realignment, white, non-white working class realignment? We saw record numbers even coming out of the Bronx, coming out of Queens. I mean, are you seeing something here?
The biggest signal, and when I say that, I mean, like in the crosstabs where we ask a question, we say what the top line results are, like what all likely voters think. But then you can compare men to women, you can compare young people to old people. The biggest signal has always been Biden approval. What do you think about Biden? The next biggest signal is usually party or ideology. Are you a Democrat or a Republican? And that drives a difference. And obviously there's been changes. There's been a Republican registration pickup across the country because it's been absolutely horrible. People have changed. Independent people have become Republicans. New voters have registered as Republicans at bigger rates than they ever have before. The next highest signal you see, depending on the question, is either income, education, or race. And so it used to be that the biggest signal was in race, meaning that Black voters and Hispanic voters are totally different than white voters. Mm-hmm. And now they're closer than they've ever been.
Wow.
And what you see is that big signal has broken up into smaller signals across income, education, and to some extent still race. And so you see upper income people, college educated people move more towards Democrats, but less than Black people moved away from Democrats. You know what I mean? So,
Yep.
And that's literally just playing out everywhere in every population center across the board. The entire country moves 7 points right. And I would also, people are going to point to my polling that said Trump was getting 25 to 30% of the Black vote and say, no, that's not what exit polls. I just want to caution people. You just got lied to all season long by mainstream media pollsters.
Right.
Do not trust their exit polling.
No, of anything, don't trust their exit polling. That's for sure.
Because here's what happens. They ask a Black guy coming out of the election center, who'd you vote for? And the Black guy's, I'm not telling you. Or they'll say, oh, I voted for Harris. And then at the end of the day, they say, well, I have all these people that voted for Harris, but Trump won this district. What do I do? Well, then they have this forcing function, and it gets made up with white voters, right? Like that's basically what happens. So there will be voter validated studies that really go into this. I think that they will find that probably Trump got in the vicinity of 20+% of the Black vote, definitely more of men, and men showed up. And so this is, I think, a repudiation of the Democrat feminization and attack on reality, because men over index on reality, right? Like that's
right.
hard to measure it, but it's kind of true.
Right.
And so that it literally is the places that didn't get $1 billion of electioneering that moved massively to the right.
To the right. Do you think there's a possibility of New Jersey and New Hampshire and Minnesota, possibly New Mexico, possibly Virginia, if they move out, if they relocate all of the if they dismantle the administrative state and relocate them to Arkansas or something? Do you think that it's a possibility they could become swing states in 2028?
People should follow me right now, because I have no answer to that, and I'm really excited to see what's going to happen. Because what we're seeing here right now is, imagine if like Romney got in and Republican voters like, oh yeah, okay, yay, we won, right? And then Romney's like, okay, I have an agenda and I'm going to implement my policy. And he's going to write some 3,000 page law written by the lobbyists. And Republicans will be like, well, this is a garbage law. And it's going to not take into effect for 10 years. And it's like, if you look, my favorite thing, and it's one of my favorite public opinion tools that's not polling, is to go to Google Trends and just see what people are searching for. And the most telling trend of this entire cycle, maybe you could put it up, is if you look for Republican policy versus Trump agenda. And Republican policy has been pretty flat over the last, it's not really a growing party. And you know what I mean? Like people, constant interest, but not much. And then the Trump agenda spiked in 2016. It actually spiked less in 2020, which is really fascinating because he got more votes, but people were not interested the same extent in his platform or what he had. And I don't know if that's like anti-COVID votes or that they just weren't primed for it. The spike now in searches for Trump agenda are 4 to 5 times bigger than they were in 2016. So the country is like really primed for what Trump is going to come in and do now. That is wild and different. And what you're seeing now, just in the last week, it's like, no, we're not going to have to wait for the first 100 days to see what bill gets put up to Congress. Tom Homan's coming in and kicking people out on January 21st. Yeah. That's what's happening. And so the people want that. They, the numbers for those same illegal immigration questions just as high. With all voters that want the deportations, it's 64%, 46% strongly. So there's almost as many people who strongly want these massive deportations on day one as voted for Harris. So they're going to get it. That's the wild thing, I think. And so this might be the biggest period of voters actually getting what they want. I don't even know what's going to happen. Obviously, the powers that be can't let it play out like this because they're going to, his goal is to come in, clean up the government, get the illegals out.
In 24 months, literally.
Hold people accountable, destroy big ag, get rid of big food, get rid of big pharma, stop the wars. And he has a passable chance of achieving those things. It's like, what? I mean, I don't know. And it's like, okay, well, like maybe mainstream media, resistance media regains its relevance and puts up a good fight and convinces a lot of people and there's blowback because Trump overreaches. Or maybe people acknowledge that they're getting what they want and it's like, wow, he's winning. And I have no idea. It's going to be wild.
Where can people follow you, Mark?
RasmussenReports.com. We have reader subscriptions. Really happy if people could support us. It's pretty cheap, or you could do the same thing at Twitter. You could also get a free daily newsletter. It's like, hey, here's the stories we put out so you can keep track. I have a YouTube channel where I go into almost every day now videos about what's going on in our polling. And I also, if you want to come to Mark_R_Mitchell, I make fun of pollsters too. So.
And gang, you're about to get the sweetest tax cut. So come on, let's spread the love here. Support Mark and his work. Because what would we have done without Rasmussen over this last year? Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen, one of the single most accurate pollsters in this particularly crazy, chaotic campaign. A very well-deserved congratulations, Mark. You're the best.
Thank you so much.
Gang, as you know, we look out for each other on this channel. Your safety and your security are our #1 priority. So if you haven't secured the deed to your home as of yet, you need to click on that link below right now and protect yourself and your loved ones. I was absolutely shocked when I found out how easy it is to access the deed to my house, and not just access it, but actually change it. The deed to your home is the only document that proves you own it. But the problem is that all our deeds are now online, and criminals are free to find your deed, forge your signature, refile as the new homeowner, take out tons of loans using your home's equity, and then they stick you with all the debt. But that's where our good friends over at Home Title Lock come in. Gang, they're simply amazing. Home Title Lock gives you the peace of mind that the deed to your home is absolutely and completely protected 24/7. Click on that link below right now. Use promo code TurleyTalks. Then all you got to do is enter your address for your no obligation home title scan to see if you've already been a victim of deed theft. It's a $100 value, absolutely totally free with my promo code TurleyTalks. Gang, don't wait for the worst to happen only to regret you didn't do something about it when you could have. Do what I've done. Do what countless patriots have done. Click on that link below right now and secure your home.